Ancient history is filled with brutal conflicts, and while war crimes as a concept didn't exist in the way they do today, many ancient battles and events were marked by acts that would be considered horrific by modern standards. Some of the most shocking include the sack of Carthage, 146 BCE. During the Third Punic War, the Roman Republic utterly destroyed the city of Carthage in an act of vengeance. After a long siege, the Roman army led by Scipio Aemilianus breached the walls of Carthage. The city was razed to the ground, and its estimated 50,000 inhabitants were either massacred or sold into slavery. According to ancient sources, Carthage was burnt for 17 days. Salt was allegedly scattered over its fields to ensure it would never rise again, though the salting may be more symbolic than historical. The destruction of Melos, 416 BCE. During the Peloponnesian War, Athens besieged the neutral island of Melos. After the island refused to submit, the Athenians massacred all the men of Melos and sold the women and children into slavery. This event is remembered for its brutality and is often cited as an example of the ruthless nature of war, as described in Thucydides' famous Melian dialogue. The Massacre of the Helots, 5th century BCE. In ancient Sparta, the Helots were a subjugated class, essentially serfs, often treated with extreme cruelty. The Spartans regularly conducted crypteia, a secret operation where young Spartan men were sent out to kill Helots at random to prevent uprisings. The exact number of deaths is unknown, but this institutionalized violence against the Helots was a form of state-sanctioned terror. The destruction of the Assyrian city of Susa in 647 BCE. The Assyrian king Ashurbanipal waged war against the Elamite city of Susa, reducing it to ruins. After a long siege, Susa was captured and sacked. Ashurbanipal's annals boast of the destruction, including the killing of men, the rape of women, and the mass deportation of the population. The city itself was destroyed so thoroughly that it ceased to be a major power. The massacre at the Battle of the Cordine Forks in 321 BCE. During the Second Samnite War, the Roman army was ambushed and surrounded by the Samnites in a narrow mountain pass. The Romans surrendered, expecting to be spared. However, the Samnites forced them to pass under a yoke, a humiliating gesture symbolizing their defeat. Although this was not a massacre, it was seen as an act of dishonor, which was deeply shocking to the Roman psyche, leading to severe retaliations later in the war. The Siege of Jerusalem in 70 CE. During the First Jewish-Roman War, Roman forces under the future Emperor Titus laid siege to Jerusalem. The siege lasted for several months and culminated in the destruction of the Second Temple. According to the historian Josephus, hundreds of thousands of Jews were killed during the siege and many others were enslaved. The entire city was pillaged and burned, marking one of the darkest episodes in ancient Jewish history. The massacre at the Battle of Cany in 216 BCE. In one of the deadliest battles of ancient history, Hannibal of Carthage defeated a much larger Roman force during the Second Punic War. His army encircled the Romans in a double envelopment, leading to a massacre. Out of about 80,000 Roman soldiers, as many as 50,000 to 70,000 were killed in a single day, with some taken as prisoners or sold into slavery. The slaughter was so brutal that it shocked the Roman Republic into near collapse. The destruction of Nineveh in 612 BCE. Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire, was a mighty city, but it was sacked and destroyed by a coalition of Babylonians, Medes, and Scythians. The attackers showed no mercy, killing most of the city's population and burning it to the ground. The destruction was so complete that Nineveh never recovered, and it marked the end of the Assyrian Empire. The Roman massacre at Tober Forest in 9 CE. In one of Rome's worst military disasters, 3 legions under the command of Varus were ambushed and annihilated by Germanic tribes in the Teutoburg forest. The Romans were slaughtered without mercy over several days, with some captured soldiers being tortured or sacrificed. This defeat stopped Roman expansion into Germania and had a profound psychological impact on the Roman Empire. the conquests of Alexander the Great. While Alexander the Great is often remembered for spreading Hellenistic culture, his campaigns were also marked by brutal destruction. For example, during the siege of Tyre in 332 BCE, Alexander's forces executed 2,000 Tyrians by crucifixion after the city fell, and thousands more were sold into slavery. His conquest of Thebes in 335 BCE was similarly brutal, with the city being razed and most of its population either killed or enslaved. These events remind us that ancient warfare often involved not just battlefield victories, but large-scale destruction and cruelty that targeted entire populations.